How's that, Kelsey?
Now it's moving.
Kelsey got it?
Oh, I think she got it, she says.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Hi,
continue on.
and we're back.
Turn it on,
Good
turn it off.
evening. I'm Osa Schultz, 109 West Council. I am also the current president of the Board of Directors at the Chamber of Commerce for
Speaker,
the last
please.
year. Am I good?
Pull that mic
Pull it
over to
towards
you.
There we go. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. I just would like to echo a lot of the things that Kathy said. She's done an amazing job, as you all know, in the last 8 years. And the building that we use and have used for years and years and years, because I've been on the board for 25 plus years, is really perfect. It is wonderful that the city provides us with that space. It's very functional for people to find and come and meet and get things that flyers from the local businesses and maps and all that things. And as Kathy said, support our staff because it's challenging finding people to work these days. And if you can bring your child with you, that makes a huge difference for young mothers who have office skills that we can put to work and be functional. So I don't have a lot more to say than it's really a perfect situation. And I hope that the council can see fit to continue on as is, or at least adjust in a means that we can accommodate. And I really thank all of you for your time and efforts in supporting this town, because I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Osa. Any other comments on agenda items? Going once, twice. Okay, we'll move along then to chairperson representatives of boards and commissions. Anybody from the hospital board? What school board? Barb?
Good evening, Barb Jewell, Chair, Cordova School District Board of Education. Just a couple things I wanted to bring to your attention this evening. One kind of business thing, we had our annual board retreat a couple of weeks ago and identified some priorities for the next year coming up. Certainly focusing on reading, community engagement, but the other one is, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years, we just haven't had the bandwidth to get a move on it, but we really have to, which is really looking at what we're going to do at the high school and how we're going to move forward with doing something about that building, whether it's renovating or rebuilding, but just starting to map it out. And certainly the efforts that the city made with surveying all the buildings and doing assessments and that kind of thing, we got some information from that. A lot of the costs looked inflated and the activities looked, but a good start to get some information. But I know Alex is reaching out to Sam to see about setting up a meeting where we can start talking about what things have to happen in order to get started on that. And knowing that we're talking about a 5, 7, 10-year timeline, but having to start now to get everything in a row to start building the resources and the funding and the plans to take care of that building. So wanted to put that on your radar. And then the other thing is the Copper River Valley volleyball tournament is here this weekend. So we are looking forward to hosting any number of teams, and maybe we'll see you there.
Was that this weekend?
I'm sorry, the
week
next
after.
weekend, not this Saturday, the week from Saturday. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep, just, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I don't know if I talked with Alex today, I had to do some other business with him.
Heard.
And it's kind of pertinent because last meeting, we're talking about our pool, which I think the contractor said figure 10 more years. Well, Alex vision that he shared with me, and we need to kind of talk about this as both the school board and council and stuff, but thinking about perhaps putting the pool where the ball field is, leaving the gym where it is, and then making a new campus where the other one is. And I thought that was kind of pertinent to what we are saying. We're going to have to come up with a solution for this pool. So I think it's a good vision, and maybe we need to start that discussion sooner rather than later. And I also, the question I ask, and you'd probably know, is like, when does our current school bond run? I think it's about 5 years we have left.
I don't remember exactly, but
I mean, I'm just thinking if we're going to
we'll see it pretty soon.
taking on more debt. So I kind of look at it as we have a 10-year horizon here before the
Yeah.
pool falls apart. So I just thought maybe that's something council and school board needs to get together and start moving forward with a long-term plan.
Yep, and you're not the first person to suggest that, and certainly other communities have done that. You know, Seward is an example, right? And so it does sound like some timelines are lining up together. So that's really good. I forgot one other thing that I wanted to mention. So one of our priorities was really starting a conversation with the community about sustainable funding. And knowing that the solutions we were able to put in place this year are one-time solutions. The money from the state's a one-time solution. The money from NVE is a one-time solution. So we're going to be facing all of those barriers again coming up this coming year. So Pete and I will be hosting the first of hopefully several community forums the first week in October to invite the community to come in and hear some of the statistics and the data and quite honestly, ways they can advocate for their community and their schools. So just
Can you
wanted to
make
let
sure
you know.
that that's like broadcast?
Yes, we just picked a date today, Pete and I. So I'll be working with the district to get out the information into the community on the radio and Facebook and flyers and all of that.
I mean, like the meeting itself?
Yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that, because I know I won't be able to attend, but I'd love to be able to be a part of that.
What's your budget?
Oh, I'm sorry. So
shortfall?
are you asking about broadcasting it online?
Like, yeah, the meeting itself being able to call in.
Yeah,
and-
we probably won't do that because it really is intended to be, but we're going to have several. This is the first of, we really are planning on doing 3 or 4 of them so that people who are out of town and can't be there that week can come to others.
What are you projecting your budget shortfall for next year? Any ideas?
No, because we haven't looked at that budget yet. It's too early, but it's not going to be less than it was projected to be this year
Which
because we have
was-
more students. It was anywhere between 900,000 and 1.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to start all over with the legislature again.
We do. Yeah, it's getting old.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, you all and the board have been very vocal with the legislature and gone to them a number of times and provided lots of information and testimony. And so I think we've got to mobilize more voices. And not only for the school, but for the city, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Thanks, Barb.
Any other boards and commissions represented here? I don't think so. So we'll move along. We don't have a student council rep yet. So the consent calendar, where are we at? Yeah, the consent calendar is before you.
Okay, I'll take the roll on the consent calendar. Dave Zastro is absent. Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, thank you. Our minutes were in the consent calendar. We have no consideration of bids. Proposals or contracts, so it comes down to reports of officers. The mayor's report, I don't have a whole lot to report. I did give an introduction to the Native Village of EX, domestic and sexual abuse thing for their teens. It could have been a little more well attended, but there was some kids there and some of the tribal members. They had hot dogs and little giveaway things, and they marched. I'm not exactly sure where they marched, but the police escorted them. I think they came up Main Street and then down by the post office and then back to the event or to the park there by the hospital. So before our next meeting, I don't really have too much other than the rally going on. Again, we do have the 2 conferences in early October, the Historical Society and the Pioneers, amongst other things going on. So this is going to be a busy fall here. So anyway, any questions? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the manager's report. Sam?
Okay, so we did verify in code that sales tax needs to be paid quarterly, starting fiscal year 25. We will only be accepting.
Oh,
Sorry. So we did verify in code that sales tax is due quarterly per code. So we'll be noticing in for fiscal year 25 that it'll be quarterly sales tax payments. I met with staff today, went over the same presentation that I gave to you guys last meeting, just so they could have an understanding of why we need to be trimming our budgets and doing some things. I think it's important for them to understand the why, not just get told what to do. So that was pretty productive. I think the whole pot of money talk, as it was for the first time for me, was eye-opening. Also, Cheryl and I have been working and talking about the spreadsheets. We'll have the spreadsheets out to staff on 10/1, so they can start doing expenditures. It'll have their payroll, personnel costs in there, and then they can move through there. We will also have revenue. I'd like to do on a work session on 10/2, we can have a conversation about that. At putting agenda, we're gonna shoot for a portion, if not all of the expenditures on 10/16 for a first go around to look at. I'm not gonna promise, but that's my goal. Just not a lot of time for staff, but we will see what we can do. If not, we might schedule a work session like that next week after that meeting. Sales tax code will be on as a work session on the 2nd and also as a first read.
Is that right?
Yes.
You just said revenues on the 2nd, though.
Yep,
also.
we can squeeze them in.
Both.
Yep.
Okay.
Also, I after I got put on the Prince William Sound Economic Development Board, I did the meetings. I've been doing them, but I did them as an official person this time. So there's good stuff going on there. We did get a draft audit. We sent in comments. They came back. So we are tentatively planning on the report for the audit on the October 16th meeting. We just have to make sure that the audits or the comments are incorporated and ready to go. Get Gavin's off this week, so we need to get his final approval. And I don't know, Tony, do you have anything to talk about at the harbor?
Give a little bit.
Okay, we'll take it.
Tony Chanel, Harbor Master. Quick little update on what's going on in the South Harbor rebuild. The guys from Transpac that built the docks, they were here. Well, they're still here. They leave tomorrow, I think. Doing all the adjustments, all the finger floats. They have to meet a spec from where they connect to the main dock to the end, and they got to be within an inch. So they did, I think, 100 and something of the fingers, put extra flotation to lift them up to where they should be. So they've been doing that in this beautiful weather we've been having. All but iFloat and the drive down have electricity on it. Yeah, I know they were working on connections on iFloat today. There's wire run to the drive down. It's just not hooked up to anything. And then I've met with Calvin from the hydraulics. He's plumbing everything out for the cranes on the drive down there. And then Hernigan will be back next week for another spot check and punch list, make sure they got everything done. They still have some bird caps to go on the pilings, I think 5 of them. And then I think that's about it on that.
Thank you. No questions?
Questions for Tony?
Mr. Mayor, do we have a plan for the asphalt, Tony?
I think the first or second week of October, they're working with NVE's crew that's doing that work.
Okay.
And they're gonna go in together on that asphalt. So,
Awesome. That'll be really nice before winter.
yes,
Thanks.
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tony.
I don't have anything else unless someone has questions.
Any questions for Sam?
Do we have another opening coming up soon?
Yes. Duncan has resigned from Parks and Rec. So we have another vacancy, but there's a good staff in there. We'll get there.
Okay. Are we still looking for streets?
Yes. Streets.
I'm hope, what, can you explain the arrangement we have with the state on Whiteshed Road. Sometimes, most of the time I see our guys
Yeah,
maintaining
we,
it, but sometimes their truck runs by, but
we help out the state and we just have a working agreement between the state and us. So they have donated, traded a lot of fill from their sites. They give us all their recycled asphalt so that we can put it in the green machine. And also this year we rocked it up and put it in with the fill. They help us, like for instance, when Forest Heights, of course, that was part of their road too, but they helped us on the upper part, which was where the water was coming from. So we try to work together and do things like that. So that's the arrangement.
just gotten several calls, and myself running the gauntlet out there by the city shop is getting pretty bad.
Yep.
Um,
It's hard to keep those potholes full. Yep.
It's taken up almost the whole lane on the going out side right now.
Okay. I can,
Used to have a cone in it, but
somebody ran it
cone
up.
disappeared.
It's sunk.
It might have sunk, yeah.
It is too low.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Are we still tracking with our timeline for the swimming pool, as far as you know? Have you heard anything different?
Yes, I did talk to Duncan this morning. They had a little bit of groundwater after the amazing amount of rainfall on the last day and a half. But that's just a matter of letting it settle down. It's probably already gone. It's amazing how fast it goes away. And then they're gonna paint the drain or epoxy the drain. And then the shallow end of the pool has all the lining. It's ready to roll. So they do the deep end, but they do that last, and then they'll start to fill it immediately. So that pressure will come down onto we won't get any extra water. So Sunday was the tentative date to start filling before the water. So it might be Monday or Tuesday at this point.
Good.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question. You mentioned you have a couple more positions coming open. Has there been any thought or discussion about potentially trying to fill some of these vacant positions with a temporary position? There's a lot of fishermen in this town who are hurting after this last season that would love to get in a 9-to-5 job over the course of the winter and could work until May 15th, and it might give us time to fill positions. Have you considered advertising something like that? I know I've talked to quite a few fishermen who have, potentially the education and the skills to fill some of these roles, but they don't want to apply because they, think that, I won't get hired anyway. They don't hire fishermen, because that's a comment I've gotten quite a bit, actually. So they don't want somebody who's going to leave May 15th. So have you considered making temporary positions?
No. I don't think I would be against that, but the job would always be flying and their position would not be guaranteed for any amount of time. And then it becomes the investment in that, I would, by case, I would look at it. If people, send them in, we'll talk to them.
Okay.
But I think the most important thing is that would not be guaranteed for any amount of time. 2 days later, somebody could, come in and apply.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Just wanted to bring it up.
Good plan. Anybody else questions for Sam?
Have we filled any positions? Can we go with that? I know there's some vacancies.
We
Since our
have
last
2
meeting.
potentials at the police department, one for DMB and one for the police officers. Those have stringent background checks, so I'm cautious. Not that I don't think they'll pass, but I don't want to get too excited. No, not since Elena was our last hire, I think. We've got applicants and interviews for the fire medic. So not Paul's position, but Justin's position, old position. We've also interviewed for the head librarian. And that, I think they're ready. They're just finishing up all the on scores and everything. So maybe in the next few days, we might have a couple.
And then along those lines, what do you need from council? What conversation needs to happen? And I want us to have a conversation about this, is for some of these positions to be remote positions.
That
What do you
was
need?
on my list that I forgot. I think I do want to look at the remote policy, especially the finance position, very difficult. I mean, we need to make a decision if we want to try to fund that position. Yeah, I think it would be a good discussion. Some of positions are hard to do that with.
Sure.
Some are easier than others. Finance director is probably certainly one that could be. So,
Agenda item then?
well,
I actually started
so-
drafting a
Okay.
it's
resolution for a ballot prop.
because it's
Okay.
charter.
It
It's
is
in
charter,
charter,
okay.
yeah.
That's,
And we talked about it.
Except that it does say pretty much under all officers of the
Yeah.
city. All officers and employees of the city must be residents within 6
Right.
months of taking the position. So like the attorney happens to be called out in charter, and at the last line of the attorney one says, notwithstanding charter 4.2 or whatever, which is the one that says you have to be, the attorney does not have to be a resident of the city.
and
So I
that
was
was
going
done in
to-
charter, and that was done, I'm guessing, on ballot then at some point? Or was,
Yeah.
we're too far back that,
No, I mean, well, a lot was changed in 95. I'd have to look at it to see if that's exactly when that
Mhm.
happened or not.
and I guess what I would be interested to do is have part of the conversation of what, as a council, do we feel are the roles that could be filled remotely? Because you're exactly right, not all of them can be. And so,
Except those are also two very different things. I mean, full on, doesn't have to live here would be like what we've been doing, contracting out for the finance director. But just having, any position be, what do you call it?
Hybrid.
hybrid.
They would still be citizens or residents of Cordova. They wouldn't not be residents of Cordova. We wouldn't have to change that. That's just policy, I think. And if we
Right.
had the technology to support it for some.
Yeah, some working. I mean, I think there's two ways, right? You're hybrid and live in somewhere else. You come in for 2 weeks out of the month or whatever the schedule looks like, and then how is that funded? How is that supported? Or there's people working from home certain times of the month or however we work that out. And I think that is allowed at this point because they're still working, they still live here, they're residents. And even if they're somewhere else, as long as they're working and their intent is to be a resident of Cordova,
We can,
I feel
we
like
can-
that's in code.
we can put an agenda item for discussion at the next meeting, and
Okay.
if you've got a draft of your thing to discuss at the same time, then we can do that. But eventually, it's gonna have to go to the voters to change anything.
Yep.
Anything else for Sam?
No.
We were still on Sam. Okay, clerk.
So was I going to say that I was starting to work on that? I don't know if I was or not. I think I have something written here. Just that the few other things that will be coming. I've pretty much finalized the Fisheries Committee resolution, so that'll be before you. And the Executive Director, Jess Rude of CDFU, is working on the fisheries disaster resolution, so those will both be at the next meeting. Oh, and then I was going to say about the ballot language one, which might just come as a draft, like you said, for discussion. That would be a good idea. And we have an interview tomorrow for deputy clerk,
Oh,
so
yes.
that's promising and hopeful, just to have an interview, I guess. But utilities is also out right now, and there's no applicants even yet for that. So I'm learning a lot about Cassell,
We
which is
all are.
good and fine. That's all I have.
Any questions for the clerk? Yeah.
Well, I have a
Kristen?
procedural question, and maybe I should have backed up and asked it of the manager, but given what Paul Kelly has asked us about, I'm wondering if one option is to direct staff to do something. And I was wondering if we can talk about it in executive session at the end of the meeting. I mean, we need to figure out a way to discuss it at some point. So I'm not sure what.
It would be okay to have an executive session for that, but if it's not even an item on the agenda, like it isn't tonight,
So we have to
it
put
it
it on the
should,
next. Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
it should really
That's
wait
fine.
till we
I
can
just
call
wanted
it
to
out.
executive
Figure out what
session
the
on the-
process would be. Yeah, thank
In
you.
the next meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a question I had too.
Well, you'd have to have the assessor here to give his reasoning too, right? I mean, it's not
Anything
something. we
else
can
for the
decide.
clerk? Anything else you have, Susan?
Oh, no, I'm all set.
Not to open the agenda, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, it takes us to correspondence. Questions, comments on those? Hearing none, then we'll move along to ordinances and resolutions. Our substitute ordinance 1219. This is second reading. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, amending Chapter 5.38 biennial motor vehicle registration tax to increase the motor vehicle registration tax levied on registered vehicles within the city and amending CMC Section 5.05.030 to clarify that personal property is exempt from property tax except as otherwise stated.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, move Carpenter. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, so this is an ordinance to update our motor vehicle registration tax, which was first implemented in 1999 and, or at least, and has not been changed since then. So, yeah, we are talking about adopting some modest fee increases to be a little more current. And we just had a public hearing and did not hear from anybody. And this is the second reading. So I am in support of this ordinance change.
Hey, thank you, Councilmember Sherman.
Yes, I too am in support of this. There are numerous other communities in the state of Alaska who already are doing this and have exorbitant rates. So this is a mere update as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones.
Not really in support of this. I've spoken at the last couple times this has come up as to why. I don't think I'll be changing my mind on that, so I'll be voting against it.
Hey, thank you, Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, I support it.
Councilmember Rainey.
I support it.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yep, I support it.
Anybody want round two? Hearing none, then we'll have the clerk call the roll on ordinance 1219.
Substitute ordinance 1219 for second reading and adoption. Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
No.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
and Dave Zestro is absent. Motion carries 5-1.
Okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business. Our new and miscellaneous business, item 14 on our agenda, council action on disposal and method of disposal of lot 17, block 10, original town site.
Mr. Mayor, I move to make lot 17, block 10, original town site available and following the noticing procedures dispose of lot 17, block 10, original town site. As outlined in Cordova Municipal Code by number 1, negotiating an agreement with John Stack and Barbara Sullivan to lease or purchase the property.
Second.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I, made the motion to get it on the floor for discussion. I also made the motion to choose number 1 as an effort to be consistent with what motion I make pretty much anytime a lot comes before me. I think that the people who put it forward should be given the option first. So I don't like going out to sealed proposals so that somebody else can try to interfere and copycat or, yeah, I've spoken a lot in the past about how I don't like our disposal process. So I will be sticking to my guns and chose number one.
Okay, Councilmember Carpenter.
Thanks. I am in support of this resolution largely because the person making the request already owns the 2 adjoining lots, and for this, so this one lot by itself, I don't think has very little value to anybody else. And I mean, yeah, as we heard in the original, in the initial comments, it's already got a utility corridor on it, and so there's a lot less usable space. So I think if somebody wants it and they want to combine it with other lots and add value to all of that property, that is going to be a benefit to the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, so question for Kevin. So which is the right description of this property? Is there a 5-foot easement, 10-foot easement? What are we looking at?
Yeah, John did catch where I just we don't deal with corner lots a ton. I mean, there's only so many corners. There is a specific provision that for corner lots, instead of the typical easement, it's a 10-foot easement on both street frontages. So with that, it would make only, not even if you take out the fact that there's utilities running there, you'd have a 10-foot on one side, a 5-foot on the other. So making the 25 feet reduced down to only 10 usable feet of space.
Okay. Is there a utility easement running down, or are utilities just there?
There's not a platted utility easement.
Okay, so those
but
could be moved, but it's irrelevant, right? Because you're saying you have to have.
There's still the
10-foot.
building setback. So whether the utilities were there or not, there's still a 10-foot building setback.
Okay, so my comments are going to be directly to what you have written here, because I do have a little bit of an issue of the way this was presented. I'm going to vote in favor of the motion, but only because of now that there's this 10-foot instead of a 5-foot. Because with a 5-foot easement, this was a very viable lot to build a house on. All right, you could build a 850 square foot house or 1,600 square foot house on that double side. There was room for it on this lot, right?
With a 15-foot width.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen townhomes that are 15 feet wide.
sure,
Yeah.
16 foot. I live in one. Most trailers, the single wide trailers are 12 to 18 feet, 40 foot long, 50 foot long. So you could have easily fit a 15 by 55 foot place on this lot. So that's my issue with the way it's written up. Now, the new information, it's 10 foot and 5 foot. Now we're only leaving 10 foot, so it's a moot point. But I've heard others say, well, this is the best use, the highest use. No, the highest use of this would be have a residential house put on it. I just wanted to point that out, that we need to be a little bit more careful. We just had a couple-hour meeting on what we can do to get affordable housing. And if this did not have that 10-foot easement on the roadside, this would be an ideal lot for an affordable house right there. It'd been perfect. So those are my comments. I'm a little bit disappointed planning and zoning didn't look at that and come up with a better thing. And I don't blame you for the 10-foot. That's easy miss. So for those reasons and those reasons only, I'll support the motion. As far as this idea that first one in should get it, that's the reason we have the policy, because people were just walking in simply buying. I've said this many times. People just walk in, talk city manager, they buy the property. The way this was set up originally, this process, and actually Mr. Kelly brought this to our attention when we were setting this up, because I was part of this, is now you come in and you ask, is lot 1A available for sale? I want to purchase it. That's all you had to do. Then lot 1A went out through the process. Was there a snow dump? Is it available for sale? It was advertised for sale. You did not tell the public at that time you were going to put a house or warehouse or whatever was on it. Once that said, yes, it's going to fill, then you take proposals. Those sealed proposals. Then and only then the Planning and Zoning Commission would put it up and say, all right, this one, proposal A is better than proposal B. At no time did you have to show the community what you're going to do. And that actually came from Mr. Kelly attending one of the meetings, because this isn't fair. Everybody's going to copy me. If we've gotten to the point where the people are coming in asking to purchase property and saying what they're going to do with them, that's on them. But the process was set up so that, I don't want to say secrecy, but you didn't have to divulge what you're going to do with it. That's why it was fair. That's why it was fair for everybody in the community to look at and say, oh, I didn't know that was for sale. What am I gonna do with it? And I served on the commission for 14 years. We had people that were gonna put 1,000 square foot home on, we had people who were gonna put a triplex on. I mean, we looked at everything. And then they made the value judgment. So for those reasons, I think we need to get back to the original process. This process isn't perfect, but it's the fairest thing for everybody in the community to do that. Except, again, this is an exception in my mind. It's now that it's 10 foot wide by 60 foot usable space, there's really no point in, other than awarding it to the adjacent property owner. I would agree with that assessment, but I will strongly defend this process to my death.
I would just add that the process is still like that. The code only requires the minimum information that's required on a letter of interest is your name, your contact information, and what property you're interested in. The code does not require that you divulge any additional information than that. And so the spiel that I give each person is I let them know. The council ultimately has the decision of either directly negotiating with the person that submits the letter of interest or doing a request for proposals. And so it is up to you to make the decision on, do you want to show your cards or not, and try to come up and show the council that I have such a good proposal that this is something that you shouldn't pass up, and attempt to get them to go to do direct negotiations with you, knowing that if you do that and they choose to go to request for proposals anyway, you've now put your cards on the table and the rest of the community can now, quote unquote, compete against your proposal. So the process hasn't changed in that way. It's still ultimately up to the applicant about how much information that they want to put out there.
Oh, there you go. And that's a very fair way, I think, to treat people.
Yeah. And then I just want to add, this is coming from the Planning Commission. And I don't know a better way to pass this information along than just saying it like this right now, is that when it gets to you guys, it has been publicly noticed twice now. It was publicly noticed when it went into the agenda for the Planning Commission, so everybody in the community knew that these lots were being looked at. And then it is publicly noticed again when it comes to you all for this decision. And so the whole thought about the secrecy and these deals are just being made and nobody's getting a chance. The community's had two opportunities to come first to the Planning Commission meeting and voice that they are also interested in the lot. And then they have a second chance when it comes to you guys for the decision to show up at this meeting and voice that they're interested in this lot. So the public has had two opportunities to voice their interest in the lot.
Yeah, but we just sold a lot to a city employee without giving the community a chance to bid on that lot.
They had two opportunities when it went to Planning Commission and when it came to you guys. So
Yeah. So anyway, why not just put a for sale sign on there too?
Well, isn't that what happens now when we put it for?
the code that you guys adopted only requires a notice sign to go on the lot when it changes status from not available to available. If it's already available on the list of properties and someone comes in with a letter of interest, there's no required notice on site.
Right, but for this one though,
This one will require it. Yeah.
but what is the notice doing? We're already saying we're gonna negotiate with
No.
somebody. Why even put a sign up?
Because the code
Other than
requires
the
it.
code says that.
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe we missed an exception on our thing. I mean, it's extra wasted work is what it is in the case of what we're doing here tonight. So anyway, Councilmember Sherman?
I am also of the school that Mr. Baylor follows, but in this case, I had been leaning because they are adjacent property owners, and that seems to make a lot of sense and it's a vacant lot that's been vacant for a long time, and it'd be nice to see something developed in that area. So I will be voting in favor of the motion.
Kinsman?
Yeah, my only hesitation is to what you brought up, Mayor Allison, is that we're taking a lot that was not available and making it available. And this is how I've tried to vote this, is if there's a lot that's already available and we've gone through the process and we do a great job of vetting that, that's public knowledge. Anyone can go and point Those are all available lots. Now we're saying this is an unavailable lot that we're gonna make available, but not actually make available. And so that, to me, is where I have some of the issue of someone came to us with an idea to a lot that wasn't available. And so with our current process, sounds like it's backwards. It really should, if something's gonna be made, that needs to be established first. There needs to be a process that's gonna get that lot into an available status. And then if someone, in this case, Mr. Stack wants to come and say, okay, I'm interested in this lot. I understand it's not available. Let's get it available. And then once it's 30 days posted, all my neighbors can see it, whatever the rest of that process is. Then Mr. Stack, please present, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. Now that it's officially available, the 30 days has passed. That's not our current process. So because our current process is backwards, I will support that. It makes sense, but that is something that I'll be bringing up to the agenda item because it's not correct in my mind.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's, some of the unintentional consequences of when you write code is until you actually start using the code, you don't really realize the items that you may be overlooking or missing. So I wouldn't disagree that should probably be a process that goes forward, and we could do that as a policy going forward until the code is passed.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely would say that that's something that we should address.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Councilmember Rainey?
I support it for reasons that have already been put out.
Any second round? Anybody? It's just a voice vote?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion on item 14, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So the negotiations on that wouldn't start until after
Correct.
the 30-day period or whatever, it's 30 days, yeah?
Yeah, it's
that how
30,
long?
it's 30 days, I
Yeah.
think is what the code says.
Okay.
Yep.
But that other step is already done. Okay, item 15, council action on disposal and method of disposal of lots 3 and 4, block 8, original town site.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to dispose of lots 3 and 4, block 8, original town site as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060B by item number 1, negotiating agreement with Cordova Chamber of Commerce to lease or purchase the property.
Is there a second?
second for discussion.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, I think the chamber does bring a lot to the community. Obviously, I wish that, our sales tax revenues were up this year and they're not, but the chamber has done a pretty valiant effort on trying to bring people to town. We got that MOU updated last year to get them getting more advertising for the city center. I would have liked to hear, I guess, a little bit more details from the comments earlier, the number 1 chamber in the state. That sounds great, but I was kind of curious at what metric, is that number 1? What, are you bringing most people to town? Are you, why are you number 1? I would also like to hear more about how many conferences did you deliver to the city center? That's something that I would be interested in. But ultimately, I think that the building is very suitable for their use. I'm in favor of either leasing it to them again, or, if they want to buy it from us, I'd be in favor of that too. So, yeah, that's why I made the motion.
Okay, when we get to that section of the budget, maybe Kathy can come be a big guest speaker and provide some of those additional answers for us, yeah? Okay, who was saying Carpenter?
Yes, and I mostly seconded it so that we could have a discussion, so we'd be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Rainey.
I just, looking at our debts and the realization that we cannot tax our way out of the deficit, it's very difficult for me to support giving a building and financially supporting one of many nonprofits. The chamber does a great job, but so do a lot of the other nonprofits in town. And I can't support that large of a chunk of money and in kind going to one organization when we are looking at the deficits that we're looking at this year.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, similar feelings to Council Member Rainey there in that, if a lease is up, then what, I guess, I'm just curious on what are terms of a lease? Are we charging the chamber a lease like we would anyone else if we put it out there? If that's the route we were gonna go for a lease? We put it out for sale? Are we gonna charge them, or is everything gonna be a sort of in kind that comes back to the chamber that, okay, well, this is what your lease would be, and we're just gonna subtract that out of what, I mean, we're throwing out essentially 110 and 70,000. So we're gonna pay less than that to make up for the lease? I don't know. That's, I guess, where I'm just in this option being chosen, kind of confused. What does that mean for us as council to negotiate this?
It would be negotiated and we would provide the manager parameters for that negotiation. And if she wasn't sure, she'd bring it back to us and we would.
Yeah.
Well, how the lease is laid out right now is the lease does stipulate a base rent, but then the council then negates that out through
The current lease, but we're
The current-
negotiating
yeah.
a new lease with them. That's
Yeah.
done.
So, but I'm just saying, so I don't know if that's how it would still be done because we, like I said, the lease does state a base rent. But then it would be up to the council at budget time to decide if there would
It's
be
gonna
in
be
kind
in kind or-
to, yeah,
or
to
if we're gonna
cancel that out.
collect.
Yep.
Councilmember Baylor.
Well, quick question for, I've got a couple questions, comment, but pre-1999, pre that building, did we have a chamber person? And if so, was that located in Old City Hall?
No, it was in that little teeny iceworm headquarters between Wells Fargo and CDFU or Copper River Watershed. Thank you.
Okay.
I lived in there.
Because
It is.
the building itself was built back in the day. I mean, why they're there is a good question. Why that building is there. It wasn't so much in my view is because they wanted to expand chamber and get more people in there, but it was, we were at that time getting cruise ships coming in and the city hall was down there. This was not here. And the uptown or businesses were saying, hey, we're not going to provide lavatories for all these visitors. So that got built. It had 2 multi-station laboratories put in it, and that was the idea of it. So when people came, they had a place to go if they're going up and down Main Street. Of course, the cruise ships didn't work out. That's been long gone. They've taken out part of the lavatory. I can support the chamber position, but I'd rather see the chamber position move into this city hall, into this complex. So that would have eliminated right off the top is $70,000 right there. And then would be helpful, I think, on our budget. If we decided to vote in favor of this lease and then we get into our budget session and go, you know what, we really can't afford to do this, we're going to do something else. Can we then at that point say, all right, the lease, you're going to have to move, if you want to stay in business, you got to move into here or move into another building. We're not going to lease the building, or are we locked in?
The motion is to negotiate a lease.
A new lease.
The lease would have to come back to us for approval.
Mhm.
At that point, then we'd have a lease and need to make an out clause or something in there, but
Yep.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
this motion tonight doesn't complete the deal.
Okay.
That's come back again.
I guess I would like, and I don't know if this is time, I think budget times, I think we need to discuss monetary value that we're going to be putting into the chamber. And that would be at budget time, correct? Not here, we're kind of just talking the lease, but they, to me, they tie together. I don't know.
Well, they tie together.
You know,
Well,
somewhat.
I mean, Mr. Mayor,
Right.
it was come back, they're asking for the same amount of funding. So we already know what they're asking for.
Right.
Some kind, one way or another. If you're asking if we have money or not, we don't have money, Tom.
right.
It's,
Well, I mean, that's a discussion that we need to have. We can't
Yeah.
just go, all right, let's have the lease and let's pay out $180,000 and then go, well, we don't have $180,000.
In the meantime, just a question for you. The lease, when did it already expire?
No, the lease expires December 31st.
Okay, okay. And then if nothing is, well, certainly we'll know by then because we're in the budget. So, Councilmember Sherman.
Well, as somebody who lived in that little room, I'm in favor of the motion of renegotiating the lease and continuing the conversation through budget time.
Okay. Second. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, one of the comments, I think it was Councilmember Baylor, he mentioned the cruise ships have come and gone. Well, we had 30-something visits of a cruise ship this year for the first time in over a decade. That's a direct result in a tangible, visible result of the chamber's efforts. And I really appreciate it as a community member and a business owner. I appreciate them trying to be targeted and bringing the small ships that can immerse themselves into the community without overpowering our resources in our small downtown area. I totally understand that the building was built to, help with the larger cruise ships we were getting back in the 90s and in the early 2000s. Those went away when the, Cruise West folded and the financial collapse of 2007, 2008 happened. And, I think that's something we've been missing for a long time. And the tourism in this town has been suffering for a long time, especially since 2012 when we lost the bridge to the glacier. Our business community has suffered to shed the COVID pandemic blues. Everybody got shut down in 2020. We have lost countless businesses in the last 10 years. And there's one organization that is just doing a little bit to try to help fight that. I don't think when we have budget concerns because the business community in this town is suffering. We can't raise taxes because the business community in this town is suffering. Fishermen are suffering, but it's not just the fishermen. The restaurants are suffering. If you look at every single brick and mortar restaurant in this town has a for sale sign on it in one way or the other, or it's been sold in the last year. We need the chamber. We need to have them in that building. We can debate at what level we want to fund them at budget time, but we need to have a presence downtown that's going to attract people. We need butts and chairs. That's what we need in this community. We need people coming in, paying sales tax, spreading the tax liability from the people who live here to people who are from out of town. We need to bring those outside dollars in, and that's what their mission is. And so I support them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Well, just to rebuttal that's why this building was built. So we have
Thank
a
you.
presence downtown.
Thank you.
And this building has multiple bathrooms.
Yep.
So that, in fact, it made it obsolete. So they took one of the bathrooms out up there, or they sliced it down. So that the discussion of, I'm not saying we could, at some form, we can fund the chamber. I am not in favor of continually fund that building. And oh, by the way, you didn't have maintenance on this cost either, which what they're going to be in a roof and other things. So that's where I'm at. Can we figure out a way to move the chamber position into this office that, we're maintaining, or this building, and continue that, and then get rid of maybe the $100,000 that it's cost us a year to maintain that building down there? So you're going to have to, we're going to have the same discussion with Parks and Rec. We're going to have the same discussion at the swimming pool. We're going to have the same discussion with the school. We are going to have to make cuts, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to start figuring out where. We don't have the money.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Yeah, Councilmember Kinsman.
And along those lines, I mean, if we have a beautiful city center, and that was part of it. And I know last year this was brought up and some of council shut it down, but if I'm coming to this community and I want to take someone to this community and I want to showcase something, I want to showcase this building. No, I mean, and that's no offense to what the chamber's trying to do in their shanty shack that they have going over here, but we have the Taj Mahal here. Let's bring them the Taj Mahal.
Oh, please. not that word.
Call it that.
And I don't know the history
Oh,
behind
you're
that.
just gonna
So,
put me over
but
the
if we're going in comparison to the two buildings and we have a beautiful facility with restroom
Oh, you know.
and so that's where I'm at. And so that, and it's, we can talk about, we can talk about our funding. Yeah, we know we don't have funding. We don't have money. So we don't need to wait till the budget process to see where we're at, because Sam's done an amazing job to tell us that we don't have money. So it's my struggle.
And it can,
Go ahead, Sam.
And I know that that office over there won't work. And I
well,
thought that
and I
looked
think
great.
the other thing that, these are rentable spaces, and we are also subbing the code blues, and we are trying to get this building up and running. We have multiple meetings, events here. Kathy has put in another conference. It has another conference has been booked. You start taking away space from these rentable places, you're kind of pulling away from what you're trying to do. We had to build this place up, and if you take away an office or rentable space, yeah, just something about. I think it's an important thought, though.
And it's,
Councilmember Carpenter?
Yeah, I mean, I just heard the chamber say that they want to stay where they are. They know we have a budget problem. We have talked about talking about it during our budget process, but I think it gives them a little bit of time to think about their options. Do they want to come back to the city with a proposal to share some of the burden of the lease and contribute to that cost instead of having it all be in kind? So I don't think we have to make that decision right now. They can look at their options. But I did hear them say pretty clearly they want to be where they are. There's not going to be any one thing that makes everybody happy. I do think it makes sense to have that spot for them up on First Street as a visible presence, as a visitor center, because I know for a long time it was, people didn't know where to go. There was a time when the library museum was the visitor center, and sometimes that was confusing to folks. But anyway, yeah. And I do think if we're talking about diversifying our economy moving forward, that tourism is going to be a bigger and bigger part of that. So it makes sense for the chamber to have a presence, and it makes sense to support them in trying to do that to the extent that we can. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, now the motion is to negotiate a lease with the chamber.
Mhm.
Okay? All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
3-3. Can we do was it
We better
3-3?
do a roll call. I didn't
Yeah,
think.
do a roll call.
Casey Kinsman,
no, nay.
Dave Zastro is absent. Ken Jones,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
no.
Tom Baylor,
No.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
So it is 3-3, so it fails.
3-3 fails.
I have Ken.
Okay.
We have 6, and it's 3-3.
3-3 fails. Any other motions?
Yeah, I move to refer this back to staff and bring it back after the budget process.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to refer to staff. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
They.
The motion carries 5-1. Okay, council action on disposal and method of disposal of a portion of the public safety building. Councilmember Carpenter.
Mr. Mayor, I move to dispose of a portion of the public safety building as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060B by negotiating an agreement with Alaska State Troopers to lease or purchase the property.
Second.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's a piece of city property that has tenants in there that share a similar mission and I think benefit from having proximity, spatial proximity to be able to coordinate law enforcement activities. And to my knowledge, we haven't heard other expressions of interest, and the Planning Commission has passed the motion 4-0 to recommend that the City Council dispose of it this way. And I support it based on Planning Commission's review and the current
Councilor
tenants.
Baylor?
Yeah, I guess I'll support it. This was very contentious when they first moved down there, but they're there now. And so I would just have, so the city manager again is going to negotiate this contract, and I would just suggest that there'd be a yearly bump up for square footage and rates, which is the way I do my leases. So I think it would be helpful to keep ahead of inflation and cost. So I'll support it.
Yeah, I'll support it. I do have a question, I guess. Maybe I'm just, I don't know, didn't read it closely enough or something. I don't see in here, I guess, the price they're currently paying. And, you know, if we're going to be instructing them to negotiate a lease, I guess I would be curious to see if they're negotiating a market rent for it or what the current price is, or if that's something that's appropriate to discuss at this moment or not.
I do not remember what we charge them, but I do not believe that it is a below market value. They're the state; they can give us money. So
Right. That's my opinion on it as well.
Yep.
That was kind of the whole
Yeah.
deal about it when when they moved in is, you know, we were undercutting a private, you know, landlord, and there was some controversy surrounding that. So I would like to just make sure that if we do negotiate this, that we're on the market or a little higher even, you know, $1.50 to $1.70 square foot. And it is a pretty good space, and I think it's very suitable for what they're using it for.
Again, these leases will come before us for approval, and it will have the dollar amount
Okay.
in that contract that we sign. Those in Maker and second, Rainey.
I believe right now what they're paying covers utilities on a building that shouldn't still be there. So I suggest we continue to let them pay for it until we can figure out how to get rid of it.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, do you know, is there like a CIP clause or something similar? I just don't know how this.
yeah,
would be
it
negotiated
does
with
have the
state
CIP
versus
clause.
private.
So we can't get ahead of inflation, but we have it tied to inflation.
That's all. I just want to make sure it matched at least what our current trend would be doing. So we're trying to shore up all our leases. I will support it and look forward to seeing what the new terms of the lease look like.
Councilmember Sherman.
No, I'm in favor, but it makes continued sense.
Okay, anybody else? Round two. Okay, all those in favor of negotiating with the troopers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pending agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would like to see us put a agenda item for next meeting regarding the disposal price on the impound lot. Whether that agenda item is to vote or to have an executive session, I'll leave that up to discussion, but I want to see something put on the next agenda for that.
Yeah, we'll have
I'll
that.
second that.
We'll have that as executive session at the next meeting.
I just want to bring forward along my, and I don't know where this gets placed. I'm going to lean on both Kevin and Susan here on what I spoke to for the adjustment of the code, the 30 days, and making a lot available from unavailable to available, and just essentially reversing the process that we have now. I mean, I'm sure it's more nuanced than that, but the process to change.
Yeah, I believe I understand the change that we need to make, and it basically still doing the 30-day process, but the council not making a decision on the disposal method until following that 30-day notice period.
Correct. Tom.
Yeah, and I think we've had this discussion about putting it on before. I was just making sure it wasn't on there, and then this is not reflect on our current city manager, but I think we need to address the $25,000 spending limit. I think it was abused under previous administrations, and I think we need to take a look at that. And we discussed it, it just hasn't been brought up.
What do you want?
Well,
I mean, what do you
in
want?
a nutshell, I don't want to see 10, $25,000 contracts in a year. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but that's allowable under our current way it is. You could hire somebody and give them a $25,000 contract. When that's done, you could hire them again and give them the $25,000 contract, and hire them again, and council would have no idea that you just spent $100,000 for an outside consultant.
Okay.
I mean, that's the gist of it.
Right, and the manager certainly has a,
And I'm not, but you're not going to be the
Number
only
five.
manager. And we're
we would expect you to have your
It is
input on
number
that
5 on there.
reasoning for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's number 5.
Okay, it is on there, so why don't we just get that?
Put it
Hold
on
up
the
then.
agenda.
Yeah.
Susan will work it in. We may not be the next meeting, but 'cause
Yeah.
we've got a lot on the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we got a lot going on, but yes, I hear what you're
We'll
saying.
get
So
it.
it's just the reoccurring use of that limit
Yeah.
to,
It's probably just a simple wording change.
I bet.
Yes, like after
Or-
the first one, come back to us.
Anybody else? Did you have anything, Susan?
I think I already told you that the couple of things that will be on there also. It's gonna be a long week.
Does that, I mean, I know I brought up and I don't, again, going back to the verbiage of what needs to be here, but remote staff
Yeah.
and what that looks like to me, we probably need to have that as an agenda item or discussed or again, whatever.
Oh, I stop at staff. Let's have remote council members too.
Already do.
we already did that. And-
Sorry.
Well, certainly the clerk's
Life gets
taking
in the way.
advantage of that one as soon as we do it.
So is this a discussion item?
So
for
we
the
were gonna
ballot?
put that as a discussion item.
Yeah,
At some point with possibly her draft or resolution. Is this a resolution?
no, it'd be,
As
Well, it's
material.
not quite ready for
Well-
action yet. I mean, yeah, it'll be a resolution to put a ballot prop on just to change the one about
Right.
finance
Well, we need
director,
to
but we
discuss it.
probably need to talk about it first.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So I can at
It
least
is.
include some language from it
Yeah.
for a discussion.
Right,
What did I do?
so we'll put that as a discussion item.
Are we asking for this for next meeting? Are you putting
Well-
a meeting date on it?
I don't
How
think
soon do you want to hire staff?
Well, I'm not so sure that we'll get a
Well, but
finance
it can't, we
director
can't hire
regardless
staff till
of
it
whether
goes
it's.
to the March
Remote
election.
or
anyway.
not.
Except that we did just say that if we're talking about having hybrid jobs, that's the manager's decision right now anyway, and it's allowable. So what does council want to talk about?
We've only
Know
been
what I
looking
mean?
for a finance director for how many years?
Well, I know, but, and that would be the ballot, the
Yeah, I hear
ballot
you.
prop
Right.
with
I hear you.
the charter change.
Yeah.
And I guess if we need more specific, I'm looking for, and maybe you don't need a conversation. Maybe you can just come to us and you tell us, these are the roles that I think that could be done similar to how we're talking about the finance, or maybe there's another role. I don't know. And that's
Okay.
what I'm saying, conversation. You can bring us something.
So maybe just
Whatever
a
that looks like.
report on that.
Are
And
there any of our vacancies that could be done a different way?
Sounds like a good question for Alaska Municipal League. You know, what are other cities doing?
Sure.
Are there any other cities
Mhm.
looking at policies for
sure,
certain positions that they filled with remote?
except it's a big item. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you'll get with Andy and I'm sure
Mhm.
you'll see what you can come up with in one
Mhm.
week, or else it could be longer than that.
Mhm.
And I do have one more
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
Just based off of Barb's input of just forward planning of the high school. Sounds like a work session. Doesn't need to happen right in this moment in the midst of, can it happen at the beginning of the year? I don't know, but it's definitely a work session that probably needs
I
to
think
happen.
number 8 was meant to cover that when we put that on there, in terms of
Yeah.
strategic planning.
I think we need strategic planning for a lot of things.
Okay.
Water tanks, sewer,
Mhm.
Bonding for our streets.
Yes, so
for a
yes,
school.
we need to
And
really
that's on there.
think about a lot of different large scale projects.
Okay, anything else? Last chance? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Audience participation. Anything you want to talk about, whether it be on the agenda or not,
Great job that we're doing.
fire away.
You can fire us.
Barb Jewell, mile 2.2 Whitehead Road, because I don't remember my new address, but thank you for it. So I want to say I was just so grateful for the depth and quality of conversation tonight about the many difficult things that are facing people, the very careful ideas of how property can be disposed of, and the emphasis on transparency, because I do think that when I first moved here, it was a little bit like the people in the know about the property and the people that didn't. And I think we have a much better process, and I hear you making improvements to it, so I appreciate that. And also the recognition of the work that the chamber has done. And again, difficult conversations to make around budget and where they should be, but they have done an enormous amount of work to bring new businesses and new people into town. As Councilman Jones noted, we've lost a lot of businesses in the last 10 years, and you can see it shrinking. The economic activity, and other businesses have come in and replaced it maybe, but again, they're struggling. And so I think that as you think about the budget and have to make those difficult decisions, that issue of quality of life is so critical to mitigating some of the, quite frankly, terrors of living here. And so I think there's a couple pieces that have been top of mind for me in both my work and in the school board work that I do, and that is childcare and housing. And there's already kind of an informal working group addressing childcare, and the Economic Development Corporation has been a huge part of that. But I would really like to propose thinking about ways to address affordable housing, like putting a working group together that can really dig into what are all other small rural communities doing. The city managers have worked so hard on this. The council has worked so hard on this. But it probably would benefit from a small group of dedicated people really digging into what are other communities doing. Because I have seen some white papers and policy papers that offer some solutions that might work here. But I think it's going to take a dedicated attempt at digging that out and then bringing it to the council or bringing it to the city manager for further discussion. It's a very complicated issue here, but there are some solutions out there, and we can market Cordova to the moon and back. But I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to trying to recruit them to come here, or actually recruited them to come here, and then get here, they can't find housing and they leave. I can't tell. I personally know 5 people who are moving out of town in the next 3 months because they can't afford the housing. Some of them have kids. They're going to be leaving the school district. And again, I know that the council and the city managers have worked very hard on this. So no criticism, but I think it's a problem we got to solve if we want to accomplish some of the things that I heard this group talk about wanting to accomplish. So that's my 2 cents. And then with the high school, I just want to offer, I think the board and the school district's administration's intent was to meet with the city manager and maybe some of the city staff to talk about the regulations and roadmaps and stuff, and then speak to the council about a work session and the bigger picture and things like that. I just think that those folks are going to have knowledge of the details that need to happen. So just putting that out there for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Johnson, 710 3rd Street, not here as a city employee. Since the topic of the new high school is coming up and a new pool and all of that, something that I would like to make sure is known and included in the conversation when we're talking about these new facilities is the fact that there needs to be some sort of cooperation between the school district and the city when it comes to shared use of these spaces. My understanding is when the elementary school was built, that was a huge topic, and that is not materialized. I can only talk from one user group, but I've become an avid user of the Bedarkie Center for volleyball. and we have adult drop-in volleyball twice a week. During the summer, we have a huge influx of quote unquote underage kids. We don't kick them out, even though it is adult drop-in volleyball, because we understand we need to, include them in the system so that they continue to come when they are adults. The problem is we have one court, we get 30 people sometimes, and over half of them are not adults. That causes adults not to come because you have to sit out for 15 to 30 minutes to get rotated back onto the court. My understanding is that the parks director has approached
Superintendent.
the superintendent about this, and there's been no headway been able to be made. I can understand during the school year, there's a lot of sports and there's a lot of other activities going on, but during the summer, there needs to be some sort of cooperation there. And if we're going to be talking about building new facilities, we need to think about how can we incorporate all partners into these new facilities. So just want to make sure that that's part of the conversation when we're going forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm still Paul Kelly and I still live at Jim Poor Avenue, but I have no idea what my house number is. Anyway, I just want to be real clear that so I leave with you all with the right impression. I'm here to work with the city. And I've told Kevin that, told Sam that in the past. I'm not asking for any handout. I'm asking that we work cooperatively and try to make some of these housing things disappear. I hear a lot of talk tonight about finances and lack of cash and so forth. I'm here to make a cash deal, but you guys can't make a cash deal because you're worried that I won't perform. And I understand that. And I don't blame you. You've been burned, or the community's been burned several times on that. And I get it. But maybe there's some middle ground we can reach where I can provide cash and still, you still hold me to a performance thing to make you happy and make everybody happy on it. I have no intention of not performing. I've been chomping at the bit to do this for 9 years now, and I want to get started. And my goal is to try to get 2 buildings built next summer. But if I don't get started pretty soon, I'm not going to be able to get engineering and everything done. So I've got all kinds of ideas in my head. I've got 2 generations behind me waiting to and chomping at the bit to kick me out so they can move on. And that's fine. At some point, I'm going to want to move on and hand it all over to somebody else. So I want to have a complete business to hand over, and I want to help the city reach their goals. And I'm here. I wish I could join in your secret session and share some of that with you, but that's probably not how it goes. Again, I've got all kinds of ideas, and I'm here to work with the city, period. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing nobody else, we'll go to council comments, and we'll start over here with Kathy.
That's not fair. I really don't have anything to add, except I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Good to have you back. Councilmember Carpenter.
So, yeah, I was just going to let Barb know that the Economic Development District has been doing, some work on housing. We are planning for I'll call it a workshop or a roundtable on the 15th of October, trying to get some folks together. We had we've been working with a group of folks from around the Sound, so the city planner of Valdez and some folks from the other communities, as well as Kevin is part of our group. And we are getting technical assistance from the Minnesota Housing Partnership, so they've been helping us. We started with the idea of having a roundtable and inviting developers to come show them that we do have developable property, and didn't get any response to that. And then at the workshop we had, Casey said, Councilmember Kinsman said, "Wait, what do developers want?" So I sent out a survey. I did hear from one developer out of the maybe 25 or so, I think, that we emailed. So we're going to try to follow up with some phone calls and call them and say, can you please answer our questions? Because we have some good questions. So we're still trying to get a group together on the 15th of October, and we've gotten some suggestions from different quarters of some local resources we might be able to draw on. So still planning on trying that. Strong towns, yes, yes. Yeah, so we're trying, but it would be great if you want to come and share, or at least maybe you and I can talk and you can share some of the ideas that we could bring to this group. So, I mean, we have heard of different things like housing trusts, which I guess have some pros and cons, but that's where you set up a nonprofit, or the city can be the one where the city owns the land, and you can build homes on it, and then those homes get sold, just the home. The buyer doesn't own the land, but it's an easier on-ramp to home ownership. So they build equity in that home, and then at some point they sell it and move on and buy a home that's like a single-family home on its own land, and then somebody else can buy just the home, not the land that's underneath it. But like I said, it's an easier way to get into the home ownership, into that position. So yeah, looking at some different things, working on it.
Thank you. Councilmember Jones.
Well, I appreciate those efforts, but I don't remember seeing a survey or an email to invite on a roundtable or anything. And I'm somebody who's actively trying to invest in the community. I'd be curious if you reached out to other local developers. So, I mean, you want to build stuff in town, start with talking to people who want to build stuff in town.
October 15th. Come join us. That'd be great. I'll
So,
make sure you get an invitation.
yeah, I appreciate that. Also, you know, the conversation about sending city jobs remote, that is just not something I want to get into at all. That's one of the problems. We have declining revenues because we have less people in town spending money in town. And I mean, our sales tax is way down. Meanwhile, we have over 10 positions that I can count around the community that have been, you know, they're good paying salaried jobs that have been shipped out of town. As a community, we need to be attracting people that have remote jobs working for outside companies to move here and make their families here and buy homes here and bring those outside dollars to town. We don't need to be shipping out our money out of town. If you need to train and recruit talent, then, you know, maybe we need to send representatives to some of these college job fairs, and we can get some bright minds right after graduation, and then draft and develop them into a finance director or into a city planner. You know, there's ways to do this and attract that talent without just shipping the jobs and the money and the benefits out of town. I think that is a terrible thing for us to even consider doing. It's already happening too much. PISWAC did it. CDFU did it. The hospital has a couple positions that have already done it. School districts starting to do it. It's not good for our community, the health of our community. So, thanks.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of that comes right back to the housing conversation. So thank you, I guess, in this capacity, Kristen, for your work with that and sharing that. But look forward to hearing some of the results from your October 15th roundtable. Couple, I guess, service announcements for the community. One is CEC power outage tomorrow. I know they communicated with the directly affected, but anyone indirectly from 8 o'clock in the morning, they're advertising through 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, from Powder House to 13 Mile, no power. So they're hoping to have it done in 2 hours, but just so everyone who is listening can know.
Kelsey.
Kelsey. Also, and this is public announcement and more awareness. If people in our community aren't aware, DOT has 2 operators. That's all they have. They have 2 operators. And if you're not aware, your roads are secondary to the airport. Airport is their primary goal and their mission. And it's published. They have a tier online if you can muddle through DOT's website. But to break it down for you, their priority, their number 1 priority is getting the airport runway open over Copper River Highway. And I'm saying this so there's awareness, but number 2 is so people will get involved and work with their legislation that 2 people to service our paved roads and the airport is not sufficient, something has to give. And it's a broad topic, and there's lots of contributing factors, but 2 people is not sufficient. It's not sufficient. And as the conversation came up today, as we were looking at the health, and our city is, we're doing what we can to support White Shed, but we can't support White Shed because we still have our own roads to support. And if you drive down some of these roads, then you know what we're talking about. So again, just more public awareness. Another thing here, and I may not have felt it, and I can completely understand why Kathy would have left. But yes, thank you to the chamber, and I can say that as my private, what I do in the private sector, one of the greatest contributors to the chamber. They do good work in our community. We need to be very thoughtful in all of our leases, all our contracts moving forward. That's really where this is coming from. Nothing personally against Kathy, nothing personal against the chamber. And last thing, the phrase I learned to avoid, Kathy, Taj Mahal. Okay, so thank you for the historical insight. And with that, that's all I have.
Councilmember Rainey.
Okay. I'm glad to see Kathy across the table. That does my heart good. There's some hard conversations coming forward to this table with budget time coming. And I morally can't sit at a table and be told that there's a $3 million deficit and be expected to vote to tax our people out of it. We can't tax our way out of this. That means looking at other avenues for saving money. And people have to make some hard decisions. Can we afford to give the chamber free housing and $100,000? Okay, if we want to do that and that's a priority for us, then where are we taking the money away from? Do we need a pool? Do we need to fund the school the same amount? Pull it from there? It's not a matter of the pockets being who we give it to. It's a matter of nothing to give. And as things come forward and we're backing out, I 100% agree that the chamber does good work. I think a lot of that work doesn't hinge on the fact that they're in that building. And that's one way to look at it. So either we talk about the lease and we get rid of that, or we talk about how much money we're giving them, but I just don't see us being able to do both. And that's where the decision comes from. It certainly has nothing to do with the work coming out of there and me thinking they don't deserve the building. The decision is the fact that we don't have the money. And if we pay for that, we have to pull from something else. And I don't see something else to pull from at this time. I appreciate Kathy coming. I appreciate the conversations and her filling us in on what she needs and what they would like. It's just a hard place to be. And I don't see another way out of it. I'd really like the chamber to be self-sustaining like the other nonprofits are in this community. And if they were self-sustaining for the $100,000, I'd reconsider the lease option, but we can't do both. And that's where I stand with that. But I appreciate the conversations and I look forward to having the conversation again in the future. I'm glad it's not completely gone. So Ken, thanks for bringing it back to staff.
Councilmember Baylor.
Well, to start with what she said. The housing is more, it's more complex. It's not a simple issue, and it's not Cordova's issue. It's not the state's issue. It's the country's issue. There are houses being built here just on about the same pace that's been for the last 40 years. We get a couple houses a year. There's a house going up on Ski Hill. There's a house going up on Whiskey Ridge. Now, the discussion comes back to affordable housing, and that's going to be a tricky one. But tonight, you all, before you got this new information on the size of the lot, you all were ready to throw the perfect starter home, low-cost lot away to be a yard. So you're not thinking this through, ladies and gentlemen. And we did this before. We sold, a couple of years ago, we sold 4 lots up on the end road up here, and we could have made that 2 affordable lots. So now you have 1 house on it, and you have boats on the other one. But you know, you're not seeing the forest for the trees. What's going to create affordable housing? A 25-foot lot, you can go ahead and you can build a 1,200 square foot home on it, right? Not everybody's going to have a view of the ocean or the mountains, and they're not going to have elbow room, but that's where you're going to get your affordability from, is a small house. You lived in a small house at one time. I think the former Dennis Keough, I think he's over on a small house over by the school. They're around here, but that's how you're going to get you want affordable housing, find affordable lots. And these 25-foot lots, you can utilize them. You might have to make some code changes. We might have to, but you can't sell them for parking. And, you know, up on Saddle or what do you call that? Wilson subdivision up here. Forsyth, thank you. I know we don't have any control about that, but there's two beautiful building lots. They both have boats on them. They were bought to store boats. So how do you stop that? I don't know. But that's the issue. Affordable housing comes with affordable lots. And then the other issue is that we were talking about this lumberyard the other day. There was 8 of us doing carpentry work here not too long ago. We have one and he's leaving here. That's it. And that's a real deterrent in getting something done. That's really, really hard. And then the ones that do have, you know, their price has gone crazy. So it's a bigger issue, but I would focus in on affordable lots. Because you give me an affordable lot, I was gonna, if this lot would have come out, it would have been a spec house on it, 1,200 square foot house I had it drawn up in my mind. You show me some affordable lots, I'll show you some affordable housing and how to get it. That's the bottom line. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Round two.
I just
All
wanted
right.
to add one more thing. I'm sorry, I meant to say this the first time. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of the ballot issues that are going to be on the election in November. There's a minimum wage ballot measure and the ranked choice voting ballot measure. Thank you. Just for everybody listening
Thank you.
and stuff that goes on the record.
Thank you for our audience members. Thank Kathy for supporting the chamber, and we will, Ken Jones wants round two too.
Kinda, yeah. One thing I forgot earlier. So we talk a lot about housing and how we have a housing shortage, but one thing I've noticed in about the last 3 or 4 months, we have a bit of a housing correction happening right now with the bad fishing season. There's over 10 apartments available in town that are
Saw that.
vacant, and I've seen more houses come up for sale in the last 3 months than I've seen in the last decade. So I don't know why the people aren't posting them on Zillow, but they're sure posting them on Facebook. So maybe a public service announcement. If you want your house to sell, put it on Zillow so somebody from outside who's looking for a job here can know that it's for sale.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Susan. Kevin, all the staff that came. And we don't have an executive session. So we will stand adjourned.
Email address.
Casey, did you say that
Um,
solar outage is tomorrow?
Jones Properties AK at gmail.com.
It was on,
13 miles from
From
our house.
our house. I mean, really from
Working on,
Maxwell. They said yeah.
cash out refinance on a building.
Yeah.
So I can buy
Yeah,
it.
Well,
they said they contacted people. I saw it on
I'm
Facebook.
trying to buy the gingerbread house.
They-
the only place I see.
They came out to the
Everybody
airport
on
and just
Facebook.
started
Absolutely.
willy-nilly talking to like my agents. I'm like, I didn't let it, they weren't even gonna let me know. So definitely an opportunity there.
I was gonna have that here.
Come visit you. I know, it's, yeah.
I was gonna have that printed out.
Yeah.
Less than 2 years. Oh, yeah. Fixed and ready.
If you brought any tickets for videos once in a while, I'll get you one.
You can give me an 8 o'clock. I spent multiple days inside.